Good evening and welcome to this live stream virtual town hall with your state lawmakers, Senator Reuven Carlyle, Representative Noel Frame, and Representative Liz Berry. My name is Andy and I'll be your off-camera moderator for the evening. Tonight is an opportunity for your state lawmakers to answer your questions about the 2021 legislative session. We surveyed the residents of the 36th legislative district earlier this week and compiled those questions for you tonight for your lawmakers to answer your questions. You can also submit your questions during tonight's live stream in the comments section below on the Facebook page. And with that, we will turn it over to Senator Carlyle for some opening remarks.
Thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to have everyone join us. And of course, we're so sorry that we can't be in person. I know we all say that, but when we meet at the Nordic Museum or the Leif Erikson Lodge or somewhere, it's so inspiring to just feel the energy and the passion and the spirit of people who are engaged in our civic life. We all know that we have the highest registration rate as a legislative district in the state, and we just have such a passionate, progressive, energetic, and enthused constituency. It's such an honor to represent you and be your voice in the state legislature. We have a diverse team and with incredibly both united and diverse interest. And we just really appreciate you taking the time to engage in your civic life in a really meaningful level. We know there's a ton of questions. We want to talk about them and take them and answer in short ways so that you can get lots of questions in and touch on issues of housing and homelessness, touch on issues of transportation and taxes and the budget and development of disabilities and the Affordable Care Act and the implications on healthcare, the issues around education and opening our schools, and so many other issues. So thank you for joining us tonight. It is such an honor to have our teammates together. We're a great team. We're so committed to our constituency, and we just really appreciate the honor of being your partner in service. And with that, let me welcome Representative Frame for a few minute introduction as well.
Great. Thank you, Senator Carlyle. Good evening, everyone. I am Noel Frame, one of your two state representatives. So excited to be with you tonight. I agree. It would be so nice to be in person. I think we're all really missing the human contact, but glad to be safe and remote. Excited to hear from you tonight. I'll just share just a couple of things. There's been some changes for me since last we gathered. In the House, I'm really proud to share that I have taken on the helm following my former seatmate Gail Tarleton and my current seatmate Reuven Carlyle as the new chair of the House Finance Committee, handling all issues related to tax and fiscal policy in the House. Also joined the Appropriations Committee and the Community and Economic Development Committee, which I'm really excited about as we think about recovering, rebuilding, and reimagining our economy to be more equitable and inclusive so we have shared prosperity all across the state. Warning, there will be no baby sightings tonight. For those who know, I have a 6-month-old. He is not here. Apologies. But that's so I can stay focused and talk to all of you. So with that, I will turn it over to my amazing and incredible new seatmate in the House, Representative Liz Berry.
Hi, everybody. So good to see you. I am the newest teammate in the 36th district, Liz Berry. I was just elected this last fall. It's been an absolute honor to represent you for now 4 weeks on the job. I'm learning a lot, certainly a trial by fire. I actually had my first bill pass off the House floor last night, and it was unanimous. So far, so good. It's coming to you, Reuven. I am really proud to be serving this year as vice chair of the House Labor Committee. I'm also a member of the Energy and Environment Committee and the Transportation Committee. So those assignments, I think, fit our district really well, and I'm really looking forward to getting your questions and ask us anything. Here we go.
Excellent. Thank you for those opening remarks. Let's dive right on into questions here. First question we have is, what's the status of COVID-19 financial relief via President Biden? And maybe you can expand on that too in terms of what the state legislature is doing on COVID economic relief.
I can take that one, you guys.
Yeah, go for it, Liz.
So I think we know a lot about what you know, which is that Biden has proposed, our new President Biden has proposed a lot of different packages to help with our recovery, help distribute vaccines more quickly. A lot of them are around infrastructure. And we're kind of waiting like you are to see what that'll be and to see what the states like Washington might receive. But what I can tell you is give you a really clear update on what we're doing here. Just Monday night, Noel and I passed off the floor a $2.2 billion federal COVID-19 relief funding allocation that we were given in December. And the Senate actually, I think, heard it in ways today. And I think Reuven's on that committee and they're going to be voting on it next week. But just a few items in that package include $714 million for assistance to K-12 schools, $618 million for public health funding, including $68 million for vaccines, $365 million in housing, including rental assistance, $240 million earmarked for small businesses. So we're really looking forward to getting that to you. And I think, we understand the urgency that people are really depending on us. And I think that we're feeling that and we're getting you something out very fast.
Great, thank you for that answer. Sticking with the COVID-19 theme, unfortunately, we've lost about 4,000 Washingtonians to this deadly disease, and we got a question on what the legislature is going to do to pass healthcare legislation with this experience in mind.
Well, I can just say just really quickly, I know that I in the past have been a prime sponsor of universal health care here in Washington State. We took a big step in adding Cascade Care, the public option, I think just last year or the year before. And I know that, we're planners in Washington State, and we knew under the Trump administration that we would never get a waiver for Medicaid match to be able to do kind of Medicare for all model here. But we've been laying the groundwork. We've had work groups trying to really understand the pricing mechanism, how we could do that. That work still continues. And I believe there is a bill in the Senate, again, trying to move us towards universal health care. Maybe Reuven, I don't know if you can speak to that. We don't have it on the House side, but still very supportive of universal health care. If this crisis has taught us anything, having a system where your health care is attached to your job it's just the model's insane. It just doesn't work, and we need to have healthcare for all now. So I don't know, Reuven, if you have anything to add about the status of that bill in the Senate.
Yeah, well, I think there's two tiers. One is the high level sort of broad strategic direction toward that kind of ubiquitous coverage. And two is the blocking and tackling of making sure that commercial programs provide the right kind of coverage, that we have accountability for commercial programs, and that we have a recognition at the end of the day that we simply have to step up to reinvest in primary care and so many other increases in the quality of Medicaid and other critical low-income and middle-income services. So both on the commercial side and on the Medicaid side, we are making some progress under David Frocht and Annette Cleveland and so many of our colleagues and Eileen Cody and many others in the House. So it's obviously unbelievably a driver of so much of our work, but in the absence of federal leadership, it's been a real challenge. So let's hope that in this year and beyond, we can really take a step forward.
Great, thank you. Next question we have is related to ESD claims, specifically to what the situation that's going on right now. Got a question that ESD claims process is still not functioning after about 11 months. Calls and emails to the ESD 800 number seem to go unanswered. We had a question from a constituent who wants to know how you might hold ESD accountable to provide better service.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that first. Look, I think every one of us knows that the profound impact on real people living real lives has just been stunning in scope. And our offices have worked together. Our staff have worked so hard to help individuals with the claims process to really facilitate and lift up that opportunity for the analysis to occur in terms of adjudication process, in terms of appeals, the whole 9 yards. Look, this is the biggest assault of the global pandemic in history. And as we know, they just got absolutely inundated. But I will tell you that we're working very closely with ESD. They are working not just on the 800 number. Call-in system is a real challenge, but we are working. They are making enormous progress, and there are incredibly hardworking folks who recognize that the backfill, when your case gets adjudicated, when a case gets reviewed, the backfill is full and complete. So as tough as it is in terms of figuring out how to make it, for those folks who still have problems, please reach out directly. We elevate those cases. We do everything we can to support you and to get that data to ESD. There, as you can imagine they're still working 18, 20-hour days. They're doing all they can, but we are holding them accountable in every way we can. It also touches on the issue of the fraud that was announced 2 days ago regarding the state auditor. I had a call with the state auditor today. We'll talk about that issue later on, but please reach out to us if you are having specific individual challenges as a constituent, and we and our team will do everything we can to help.
And Reuven was perfect. And I just want to add one other thing. I just want you all to know my frustration also with the unacceptable delays and barriers. Because of that, I dropped a bill just a few days ago. It's a companion bill to one that's in the Senate right now, but it would create a reserve force for UI adjudicators. It would make the notices in plain tested language so people can understand the letters they get, a dedicated toll-free number for claimants, and piloting a caseworker program so folks can call real people when they're having issues. But again, I would echo what Reuven said, please call the three of us if you're having any trouble, and we will get that elevated as soon as we can. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm just going to add one more thing, because this has just been such a hard issue over the last year. Our staff has, like Senator Carlyle mentioned, our staff has been incredible. And I will just tell you that they are absorbing everything that you are telling them. They are telling us. They are telling us the challenges you're facing, the real hardship that this is creating, but also the really tactical challenges that you are facing. And I will tell you, like, we are absolutely elevating them. I think this team and our staff have been at the head of elevating questions all the way up to the top of ESD. And again, not just saying this is not working, fix it, but like, here's how it's not working. Here's what you need to do. And I think what Liz just mentioned about legislation to talk about plain language notifications is a really good example of us being directly responsive to what our constituents are hearing. So, like, on behalf of all of us, we are so sorry. We know how challenging this has been and how much hardship it's creating for you. And we're really doing everything we can to make it better. So please, please, please keep telling us. Don't hesitate to keep following up with us and telling us what you need.
Thank you for that. Next question we have is on the K-12 education issue. Remote learning is failing our students. What can lawmakers do to require Seattle Public Schools to reopen this school year when public health guidelines from the state are met?
Yeah.
You want to take it, Noel, first?
Yeah, I will just say the concept of requiring, we have a system of 295 school districts in the state, and they are all locally controlled. And that the word require just jumped off the page at me as being uniquely challenging. I mean, I will just say, I think we're all really deeply committed to getting our children back to school when it is safe to do so, and getting our teaching force back with our children in those schools when it is safe to do so. I know Liz has got thoughts on this as well, but we want to make sure people are safe. This new strain of COVID that is more contagious, I don't know about you all. Without getting into it, COVID's just hit my immediate circle in a really hard way in the last 24 hours. I feel like I've gone through 10 months with like being okay, and all of a sudden it's like raining down. And I am confident that has a lot to do with how much more contagious this new strain is. We have to be really, really, really careful. And so I know how hard this has been for parents at home with children. We all have kids from varying ages, from 6 months all the way up to college students. We know that is an incredible hardship for working parents, but we need to make sure that we are safe before we are putting a lot of children and staff back in the building in close proximity. So hang in there.
I just want to say that I do believe our commitment to science and our commitment to the public health professionals is just a driving value for us. We have to follow their counsel. At the same time, Noel's right. That does not minimize the deep anxiety, the deep stress, and the emotional, behavioral health, the issues around the impact of kids at all ages, middle school kids. I mean, just every one of them. And I just want to acknowledge that. I want to honor that. The magnitude of that it's just so deep in terms of the impact. And we're going to look back on this time, hopefully, in global history, and have a deep appreciation of the magnitude of that. I do believe that the guidelines from a public health point of view are changing, and that if they suggest that we really can reopen, I really, truly, genuinely want our educational establishment to lean in and to do everything they can to make that happen. want us to follow science and follow guidelines, but I really want to reopen these schools the second we can, because kids are really hurting.
Excellent. Thank you for those answers. We're going to take a Facebook comment now that has come in regarding community and technical colleges. So Shireen wants to know about the community and technical colleges employees and their COLAs and what the lawmakers are going to do to preserve those this year.
I'm not quite sure about that just yet. I wish we had a bill number. It's always easier to look it up and see where we're at. But I don't think that that's yet hit the Appropriations Committee. I'm happy to sit on the Appropriations Committee, but I don't think we've had a chance to do consideration of that just yet. I mean, we are keeping all of these funding priorities in balance. Quite frankly, we've been so focused on getting that $2.2 billion package of immediate relief out to communities that what we're doing in the supplemental and full biennial budget, frankly, we're behind from where we would be normally, because we've been getting out that immediate emergency package. So and thank you for the question. It's good for us to keep an eye on, but I don't quite have an answer for you just yet.
All right, next question we have is going to be on police accountability. Many Black and brown folks in our community continue to be at risk from police brutality. Can you speak to your involvement with these efforts to protect your constituents from this threat?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. First, I just want to acknowledge, and the three of us believe this very strongly, that Black lives matter. And the issue of addressing racial violence and police misconduct is one of my top priorities and all of our top priorities. And what was really, really made me very pleased to see when I first started this job 4 weeks ago is that it has been a top priority of the Senate and House Democratic caucuses over the last 6 to 9 months. And in response to those calls for police accountability, the House Democratic Caucus has assembled the Policing Policy Leadership Team, comprised of my colleagues who represent communities disproportionately impacted by police violence. And they have spent the last several months crafting robust policy proposals, even before I got this job. And I am supportive of and have co-sponsored every single one of them. And I just want to highlight a few that I think are really important and that I understand have a really good chance at passing this year. One of the most important ones is banning chokeholds, neck restraints, no-knock warrants, tear gas, military equipment, police dogs as tactics that police officers can use against citizens and people of the state. Another one sets clear expectation that de-escalation should be an officer's first instinct before using deadly force. Another really common sense one in my view is requiring local law enforcement agencies to implement a community oversight board so that people of the community are also having an oversight role over our police forces. And then also, getting more data. We just need to know more about, where are these police officers? Are they quitting jobs in Seattle and then moving to Spokane and then killing Black people again? We need to know where they are and what's happening, and so we can keep implementing better policy around this. So thank you so much for your question. I know it's going to be a priority in both houses, and we are going to get things passed into law this year, I guarantee you.
Yeah, I'll just say it's such a priority that we already moved several of them out of the Appropriations Committee just tonight, including the data collection. So, and just huge thanks to our incredible team of legislators. We are, I think at this point, probably the most diverse legislature that we have ever had. The Black member caucus doubled in size, and they are really leading with their hearts, with their communities, and all of our communities behind them. It's been pretty incredible work, and we're following their leadership in many ways.
Excellent. Next, we have a question on climate. Are we in a climate emergency, yes or no? And if we are, can lawmakers get together and hammer out a carbon pricing bill?
I love this question. It's such an unbelievable honor for me to serve as chair of the Environment, Energy, and Technology Committee. As you can imagine, that's a wide portfolio of issues. I am so honored to be a partner with the governor in this work. His passion, his fierce commitment to this issue, his moral leadership is just extraordinary. Hey, we got a customer. Ladies and gentlemen, speaking of climate change and the future of the world, let me just say straight up that we are absolutely in the climate crisis of course, world history. We are deeply committed to the policy because we have among the most educated districts in the country, And if we can obviously talk the real deal, which is the negative externalities of carbon are not embedded in the price of the product. We have to have a price on carbon. And I am working very closely with the governor to have a cap on emissions. And the only way we can reach this is if we have a deep decarbonization plan for transportation, a deep decarbonization plan for electricity, which we did last year, which was the strongest 100% clean energy bill in the United States of America. And Gail and I, particularly, and Noel's help, we worked so hard on that. And I'm so proud of that legislation, the strongest 100% clean energy bill in the nation. So we have a comprehensive approach that is deep decarbonization of transportation, carbon pricing. I'm also incredibly excited to tell you where I'm hoping to pass the HEAL Act out of my committee on Tuesday, next Thursday, or Tuesday to Thursday, which is about environmental justice. And we have to acknowledge the disproportionality over history and the impact of that. And Senator Rebecca Saldana and I work very closely on that. I'm proud to be both a co-sponsor and to make sure we move that through my committee. So we are in the crisis of our time, of our era. And the fact is we need a holistic, comprehensive approach. I truly believe in my heart of hearts that we are on the cusp of passing this package, which will lead to Paris Accord level net zero 2050 carbon emission reductions that is historic in scope. I'm optimistic about it. We have a lot of work to do, but this is the moral issue of our time. And I just appreciate the honor of working on this issue.
Great, thank you for that question and that answer. Next, we got a question about taxes queued up. How are you going to lower the tax burden on business owners? And can't you work to lower the car taxes as well? How about property taxes? I think I might know who's going to answer this one.
I think I might be willing to take that one. Well, thank you so much for the question. There's a lot baked in there. I will just say, full disclosure, taxes related to like car tabs, gas taxes, etc., are in a separate bucket, different sandboxes, they like to say, in the transportation budget, and I think are really part of some of the conversations that Reuven was just speaking to. But I do want to speak to the piece about how we're looking at helping with business taxation and property taxes. For those who don't know, so not only am I now the chair of the Finance Committee, but I have for the last several years co-chaired the Tax Structure Work Group that is really examining the entire tax code and thinking about how we could literally just restructure the entire code. And of course, the business and occupation tax is just, there's universal agreement, bipartisan hatred of the B&O tax, quite frankly. It's a really regressive tax on small startup and low margin businesses. But the work of really finding a replacement has been deeply difficult. It's systemic work, and we are underway there. I'm proud to report that we have completed analysis and have looked at 3 alternatives to the B&O tax: a value-added tax, a margins tax, or a net receipts, aka a corporate income tax, as an alternative to our current gross receipts tax. And actually really engaged with the business community in the midst of the COVID crisis. And asked if we should be accelerating that work and try to look at replacing the B&O. And I'll just tell you that I think a lot of our business community has been under such distress this year that said, you know what, we'd like to wait and do that full replacement in a couple of years as we've planned. But for now, what we really need is cash assistance. And so as we've thought about how to best help small businesses right now in this moment, it's less about the tax policy, which we're working on in a multi-year fashion, and really about that cash assistance and that $240 million worth of grants that are going out now. And we already did $120 million of grants last year. So that conversation is underway, and the broad set of stakeholders in the business community are deeply, deeply engaged. I will tell you, I'm really excited to share with you a proposal that was just introduced tonight, House Bill 1494 from Representative Kirsten Harris-Talley, the anti-displacement property tax exemption. I really hope folks will check this out. We know that our tax code is the most regressive in the nation. As we always talk about it, our lowest income families pay 6 times more in taxes as a share of their income as compared to our highest earning households. And even if you're in that middle class, if you're making more than closer to $70,000 a year, you're still paying 4 times more. The sales tax is the big driver of that, but our property taxes are part of the problem as well. And the bill that has come from Representative Harris-Talley would allow a property tax exemption on residential property only for one's primary residence that would allow you to reduce the value of your home, the assessment by $250,000 prior to your property taxes being assessed. It's a lift. This requires a constitutional amendment, but I think in this moment in time when so many people are hurting and are trying to stay in their homes, that anything that we can do to help avoid displacement is something that we should consider very seriously. And that would be just on the state portion of the property tax. I hope people will look at that. There's definitely a bit of a link with this one and a bill that I've been really proud to introduce in the last week, House Bill 1406, the Washington State Wealth Tax. And I think the idea is the revenues that could be generated from the Washington State Wealth Tax could help backfill the revenue loss that would come from doing that property tax reduction and really trying to finally ask the wealthiest Washingtonians to share equitably in the responsibility of funding community investments, not the least of which is our paramount duty in our public schools, which is where that state portion of the property tax is dedicated. So by bringing in intangible financial assets into the property tax code, which is fully exempted right now, we can perhaps reduce some of that responsibility on our middle-class homeowners and have our wealthiest Washingtonians share in that responsibility. So that is what I'm working on now, and I hope you all will take a look at 1406 and 1494 and its associated constitutional amendment. Thanks for the question.
Can you guys tell Noel loves talking about taxes?
I'm a little enthusiastic. Thanks, Liz.
Yeah, thank you for that. Next question we're going to go has to do with evictions in the current housing crisis. What are your plans to offset disastrous effects of evictions, particularly with families with children, when the current eviction moratoriums and bans are lifted?
You got it. I mean, I'll just jump in and just pivoting off what I just said. We know that there's a lot of back rent due when those eviction moratoriums are lifted. And it's one of the reasons that we included a really big chunk of rental assistance in that $2.2 billion package that, again, we've already moved off the House floor. Senate Ways and Means heard today. We are moving very quickly to get this assistance to Washingtonians. Included in that is $325 million of rental assistance and really hoping to help people get caught up and stay in place. I know we'll talk more about sort of our unhoused neighbors tonight, but one of the best things that we can do to help really prevent homelessness at this point on a massive, I mean massive scale, is to continue to invest in rental assistance and help people stay in place. So we're on the path with this first step one package.
Yeah, I just want to add to that slightly that we know that a majority of renters also have landlords who own one or two units. So small landlords are an incredibly important partner in this, and figuring out how to support them is just an incredibly serious part of this. So Noel's right. We really taking this seriously. We have sort of a whole systems approach to all the different legislation we're looking at. I know the House and the Senate are working so well together to put together a sweeping package of how we approach this issue. So I think it's just incredibly important that people realize how much effort is going in, and we're hopefully going to have some really good outcomes associated with that.
Yeah, there's money in that same bill for small landlords, sort of mitigation services, other assistance. So there's, in addition to the rental assistance, which should help sort of make some of those landlords whole in the rent that they've not been able to collect, and obviously help the renters stay in place. There's other parts of that package to help with mitigation there.
Okay, next question we have is about the COVID-19 vaccine. Somebody wrote in saying that the current information is a bit confusing. She says she's 74 years old and is eligible but unable to make an appointment, and would like to know where to go to get clear direction on how to get vaccinated for specific groups.
So I'll take that one. Thank you for your question. I have to be honest, I've sometimes been a little confused also about the different phases. And I just want to preface it with, you can at any time call any one of our offices or email us at any time, and we will walk you through how to access, how to sign up, how to figure out what place the line you are. So please think of us as resources for doing that. But the first step, if you have access to internet, is to go to doh.wa.gov. And there are two really important links for you. The vaccine phase finder, you can see there in the orange, confirms you're eligible based on all the criteria. And then that green tab there says vaccine locations, has all the links for specific locations giving the vaccine. And so again, if you have bumps in the road, and they have this 1-800 number here, 1-800-525-0127. Again, call Noel, Reuven, or me. We will help take care and get you signed up if you're having difficulty. But the state continues to improve its vaccine infrastructure. So when more doses become available, we can meet that new goal of 45,000 vaccinations daily. And I know that Department of Health is planning to establish multiple mass vaccination sites to prepare for these future vaccine allocations. So thank you so much for that question. And let's go get vaccinated. I'm here for it. So can't wait to get mine. Probably not for a long time, but please reach out to us if you are having trouble.
Can I just take a moment of privilege, a personal privilege too, to congratulate, I think, was it Northwest Hospital, UW, with just the absolute incredible innovation. Was it last week when the refrigerators broke? They put it out on social media. They got those vaccines in arms. People were in line. This is just north of our district, northeast of our district. Got vaccines in arms until 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, the commitment of our public health workers right now, we really all are in this together. And I don't know about you all, but I was inspired reading that story. I know folks are working so hard and making sure that not a single vaccine goes to waste and we get that out to people. So I agree, Liz. I can't wait to get mine. It's probably going to be a while before I do. Focused on others around me getting it for now. So thanks to our public health workers.
All right, our next question is about privacy. Can you discuss the Washington Privacy Act, including its mechanism for enforcement? Who wants to take that?
Thank you so much. You know, I really, obviously, wow. I love our district. I love our people. Think about Ancestry.com. Think about 23andMe. If you choose to use a DNA service, imagine if after you use that service, that you have the right to go online and absolutely delete that data. You don't want your most confidential family information being mined by a company out in the internet. And that's what this bill enables. This is the strongest legislation in the nation. I want to say that I've worked for 3 years to combine the best practices of European GDPR in privacy rules, the best practices of the California initiative, and loop them together to meet Washington State's needs. On the issue of enforcement, I'm unbelievably proud that after 3 years of work, Attorney General Bob Ferguson has formally testified and said that the legal authority and the tools in my bill allows him to enforce the bill. So I've given a move toward his position in recognizing the importance of Attorney General enforcement, with the Attorney General having the formal authority required in order to implement it. So it's incredibly important. The state of Virginia is getting ready to pass a version of the Washington Privacy Act from last year. We're making big progress, and I just feel so strongly that we live in a time of the internet and digital era, and it ought to be as easy to get your data out of the internet black hole as it is to get it in. And I just feel that people have a right to the fundamental essence of privacy, of your civil liberties, your democracy, your health information, insurance, all of that. So I'm really excited about the prospect of passing this and this year, and I've worked very hard to build a coalition and to move this forward. So thanks so much for the question. That's pretty great.
Okay, I'm getting made fun of for being excited about taxes. Reuven gets it for being excited about data privacy. We have to have fun at work, guys. This is part of the job. We love it. You gotta mess with each other. All right, next question.
Next question we have is about the state public bank, which is gaining a little traction this year. Says the IMF has recommended this month to use a public bank to help meet the state's spending burdens imposed by the COVID pandemic. Do you support Senate Bill 5188 to create a public bank infrastructure?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I'm happy to take this one. We are not doing, we're trying to avoid doing companion bills in the House this year, or generally right now because of the remote session, but I have in the past been the prime sponsor of the state bank infrastructure bank legislation. And I just wanted to say just a massive thanks to our colleagues in the Senate, Senator Cooter, Senator Wellman, Senator Hasagawa, who have just been really doing big vision thinking and really tactical study of how we might bring a public bank into existence. I took a look because I haven't had a chance to sponsor myself in the House. I looked at the new version. Seems very creative. I mean, honestly, like anything that we can do to best leverage precious public dollars. You know, we do so much work around infrastructure with our capital budget, with housing. The version this year really leverages the Washington State Housing Finance Commission and that incredible staff that is used to doing the work of bonding and other financing mechanisms. So I'm all in. I really hope the Senate can get it to us this year so I can help shepherd it across the finish line in the House. I'm really grateful to our colleagues for the work.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Next question is about the data breach that happened in Olympia, and again exposes the lack of tech security oversight for government offices. Can the legislature take steps to overhaul state cybersecurity practices?
Yeah, I'll take that. Thanks so much. Look, I appreciate people's deep sensitivity. This is an unbelievably serious data breach. And the worst part about it, the absolute nuclear meltdown disaster, is that the primary potential victims are all of you who have filed unemployment insurance claims with the Department of Employment Security. I want to be unbelievably clear because I had a call with the state auditor today and the technical people. This in no way is Employment Security Department's fault. This was a breach by a vendor of the state audit, unequivocally. It is absolutely a disaster of a problem. It is very serious. Tonight, I introduced a bill at the request of Governor Inslee to improve and increase our cybersecurity policies. I'm going to hear that bill in my committee on Tuesday. This is dead dog serious. It's unbelievably difficult. And the fact that we haven't already offered credit monitoring services to people is serious. So I want people to know that your social security number and your address and your email, all the information that is necessary for identity theft was taken in this particular breach relative to particularly employment security folks. So please watch your accounts. Please watch carefully the opportunities for protection and oversight. This is serious. This is a categorical failure. And we have got to be all over it. And I just cannot tell you how important it is to monitor your own personal family financial interests if you feel like you may have been a victim. So we're doing all we can on this. Thank you so much. And there'll be more information in the coming days.
Thank you for that question and that answer. Next, we have a question from Jane. I believe it's coming in from YouTube. There are so many jobs in performing arts that are precious. Before the pandemic, please update on House Bill 1058.
You got it. So House Bill 1058, the cultural access legislation that is in the House Finance Committee right now. As the chair, I set the agenda, as some folks may know, and gave this bill a really early hearing, had great testimony from the culture and arts space. Our creative economy, particularly in the 36th district, is a really important contributor to our local economy. And so right now, just as an update on process, we have fiscal committee cutoff. We're in week 4 right now. We have until the end of week 6 to move legislation like 1058. I won't get into all the details, but we have until the end of week 6. Next week, we'll be doing all hearings. And then when we get to week 6, we have 4 days of 4-hour meetings each. We'll have plenty of time to get through executive session. And this is in the mix with a host of other pieces of legislation that we're considering. I think a lot of times when we get toward this part of the session, we kind of stop moving things so we can hear everything that's coming before us, look at everything in totality, and then make decisions. And so 1058 is in the mix as we look ahead to week 6 and fiscal committee cutoff. So thanks to all the incredible folks in our creative economy for showing your support for House Bill 1058.
Thank you for that. Next, we got a interesting question about the legislative session in general. Out of curiosity, is it harder for you to have a virtual session? Are you getting more or less more targeted lobbyist input?
I'm laughing because I have to say,
better. You'll be here. I'll tell you what I miss. I really miss getting to know my colleagues better. If I didn't know someone before I started this job, it's been really difficult to get to know them on a more personal level now, especially folks from different parts of the state or across the aisle. I also miss seeing all of you in person. I love doing our constituent meetings on video, but I wish we were together, getting a tour, getting a coffee, showing you my new office. So that's what I miss.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that there's certainly some silver linings to COVID. I mean, I totally just empathize with Liz not being able to have that experience in the Dome, and I can't wait till she gets to next year because there's really something special about that process. But, we're having a ton of constituent meetings, and I think it's really breaking down barriers. I mean, I think about folks who never would have made it down to Olympia before, but are able to dial in into my Zoom office, my Zoom room. And we've had great conversations. I know Liz and I have been able to do some of those even together to maximize that time. So there are some silver linings. I'll say selfishly, like as a mom of a 6-month-old baby, it's been nice to be home to snuggle baby at night. And that may not have been the case during the in-person session. So, for as frustrating as this whole thing is, you gotta find your marks where you can have that silver lining, and that is one of them. But I think we have tons of access to our constituents in a way that we may not have otherwise, and I love that.
So what a great question. Next, we are going to go to a YouTube question, I believe, from Nelda about Washington Strong. When will you schedule a hearing for this bill? We need to hear all options, have all the facts, and move forward most effectively.
Absolutely, I'll take that. Thank you so much. So Washington Strong is it's a carbon fee proposal that has basically a green bond, the opportunity to invest in our infrastructure, the opportunity to use carbon pricing to invest in our systems relative to not just carbon reduction, but a whole bunch of other important public infrastructure investments like culverts for salmon restoration, and many other fabulous ideas. My unbelievably fabulous vice chair of my committee, Senator Liz Lovelet from Anacortes, is the prime sponsor of that bill. I am absolutely going to give that bill a hearing. There is no question. It is not subject to the policy cutoff. So the reason it hasn't been scheduled is that it is not dependent upon, it is a fiscal bill. So in effect, we have a number of weeks up. I will say straight up that I am a supporter of Governor Inslee's Cap and Invest bill. I've sponsored that bill along with Representative Joe Fitzgibbon, who's chair of the Environment Committee in the House of Representatives. I feel very strongly that we have to make meaningful progress on carbon. It is a central piece. There are incredibly important elements of Washington Strong and carbon fee and bonding and other elements that we're looking at, and we're excited about incorporating some of those. The best example of course, is culverts. We have a $3.5 billion obligation to clear out the culverts so that salmon can be restored to our streams and our rivers throughout Washington. And, ultimately, at the end of the day, this is an obligation, sort of like the McCleary lawsuit. It's a Supreme Court obligation to clear out those culverts so that we can restore our salmon. So that's a specific example of where the Washington Strong idea around bonding could be incredibly helpful. So I'm going to hear the bill. I am deeply committed to the governor's bill, which is a different approach, but it's 90% overlap in terms of the two policies. There's very little modest difference between them. So I really appreciate the passion around that. Carbon Law and so many other organizations have been fabulous. My good colleague, Senator Rebecca Saldana, is both a sponsor of my bill and the governor's bill, as well as Senator Lovelet's bill. So we're all in. We're 90% aligned here. We're just so committed to climate action and to reach Paris Accord level reductions. And these policies are incredibly similar. So we're really committed. I really appreciate the passion and the activism associated with Carbon Law and so many of the other groups around this. So we're going to get there together, and we're going to do what we can to take the best of both elements of the policy and move forward. Thanks so much for that great question.
Yeah, great question, and thank you for that answer. Next, we'll bring up the topic of firearms. When are we likely to see Senate Bill 5038, which is a bill to ban weapons at the Capitol campus and rallies on public property, and also a bill, Senate Bill 5078, that would ban high-capacity ammunition magazines? When are those bills potentially going to come up for a floor vote? They also asked more of a process question as part of this too. I understand the bills might be held until the 3-minute rule kicks in. When does that happen, and will there be enough time for the House to pass these with a floor vote? So maybe explain a little bit too on what the process is here.
Sure. Thanks so much. Only in America's 36 do we get questions about paragraph 3, section 4.
The 3-minute rule. I'm like, I don't even know what that is.
Note 2 of a bill. I love it. America's 36. No, thank you so much. I have to say that Senator Jamie Peterson, my good and gracious and honorable colleague, as well as Senator Cooter, just fabulous, deep sense of sort of systems thinking about how we can move forward on gun responsibility in a way that integrates in the best practices. So there's a lot of momentum. We are going to take action. I don't know if both of those are going to make it or whether they're going to be part of a more omnibus approach in terms of this year, in terms of what proposals will move forward. I just haven't had that conversation in the last week or so. So I apologize. I'm not totally up to speed on the exact status of when they might move forward, but I know that there's a lot of support in our caucus to move those bills forward. So thank you for that. I think that if we're going to do them, which I am optimistic that we're going to do, it will be in absolutely sufficient time for the House to formally and officially consider them. So we would not hold it to that last minute in order to make it difficult for the House to pass. So from a procedural point of view, if we're going to do it, we're absolutely going to do it in timely fashion. I am optimistic that a couple of those will make it through. There's never been more momentum for this kind of responsible approach. And I think particularly given this year that the campus safety and some of those other bills are overwhelmingly likely to pass. Thanks so much for those incredibly important questions given what we faced on January 6th in this country.
And I just want to add, gun violence is personal for me. I've had a friend die at the hands of gun violence. And I dropped 2 bills this year that will help mitigate the impacts of gun violence in our communities. One of them that I'm the most proud of would require that if firearms are lost or stolen, that you must report that to local law enforcement so that they can track them down and make sure they don't get into the hands of dangerous people. And so just like what Reuven said, I know we're trying to limit the number of bills we do this year, but I am really hopeful that we are going to get a couple of common sense gun bills all the way to the governor's desk this year. And it will be a personal passion priority of mine always to be tackling and chipping away at this issue.
Thank you for that question and answer. We have several comments that have come in from the survey and on our streams tonight about the wealth tax. I'll just throw up one of the comments here. Would you guys like to talk about the wealth tax at all and whether or not that's something that you support?
Great. I'm happy to talk about the legislation. If there's questions to my seatmates about their support, I'll leave that to them. But I am happy to talk about it. So thanks for the question. I'm really, as a finance chair and with the wealth tax and other pieces of legislation, really trying to elevate the conversation and make sure people understand, and it's clear that they do, about Washington's tax code being so incredibly regressive and disproportionately relying on low and middle income families and small startup and low margin businesses to pay for our community investments, and that they're simply not, we are simply not asking certain members of our community to share proportionally in that responsibility. With the Washington State wealth tax, I'm seeking parity in the code where we ask, the middle class, their homes are often their primary tool of wealth building. And we tax that asset when they own it, and we tax that asset when they sell it. The primary tools of wealth building for the ultra wealthy, financial intangible property, the ultra wealthy pay 0% on those assets when they own them and 0% when they sell them. And that inequity is completely unacceptable to me, particularly when we depend on the state property tax to fund our common schools. Again, I think it is time that we think about this and involving the wealthiest members of Washington State's community. I believe that this is a moment in time that we need to think very hard about our code. At our hearing this week with the wealth tax as well as the working families tax credit together, we heard from working Washingtonians who are suffering deeply right now and need cash in their pocket. They need a credit against their sales tax paid right now. And folks, I am confident that this is the pathway to economic recovery. We know that when people that need money for their life essentials, get that money in their pocket, they spend it, which spurs economic activity. And so that's why I've moved the working families tax credit out of my committee today. We should move it, pass it, fund it immediately. And I think that we should move the wealth tax as a key funding mechanism for that and other reforms like the one I mentioned earlier, the anti-displacement property tax exemption, to finally bring some equity and justice to the tax code here in Washington state. So I really appreciate the question. I know it's a big, bold idea, but you know what? That's what we do as Washington state. We are big, bold, progressive, social and economic leaders. People said we couldn't do the minimum wage for $15. They said that our economy would collapse. And you know what? We ended up with the best economy in the nation. I think the wealth tax is what we should be doing as the state of Washington. Take that step out. Let's watch New York and California follow and maybe the nation. Let's be the big, bold, progressive leaders that we know we are. So I hope my seatmates will support me.
The next question we have is about housing and homelessness. So what actions will you take to help our houseless neighbors?
And I'll just start this and just make a statement here, and then I would invite my seatmates to chime in here. You know, what we've experienced in this region over particularly the last decade is an incredible spike in the cost of living, and we have seen displacement. And again, this is kind of goes back what I just said with 1494. We have seen incredible displacement for folks that used to be able to afford to live in our region and can no longer. And some of them have been pushed from Seattle to South King County, some beyond Pierce. Some we've got housing costs that have gone up all the way to from Vancouver to Spokane to Bellingham. It's been this echo boom throughout the state. And while some people got pushed from Seattle to other areas of the state, some people simply got pushed out of their homes and onto the street. And folks, there is no easy answer to this problem. We have so many different ways that we need to tackle it, whether it's housing supply and what we've done over the last couple of years with passing a different 1406, I should say, wealth taxes, House Bill 1406. We passed a House Bill 1406 2 years ago that was about expanding access to funding for local jurisdictions to build housing. We passed House Bill 1923, again, to incentivize local communities to expand in housing and density. We have made deep investments in our behavioral health system in this country and in our state. We know that so many of our unhoused neighbors are also experiencing deep crises with behavioral health. And again, we are making those investments, but no, not one of these solutions by itself tackles this crisis. It is all of these things together. And so I do think that we are making progress, but it's a long road. So stick with us, folks. There's more work ahead.
Great, thank you for that. Next question we have is on immigration. This comes from Farrar. Immigration is vital to our country and Washington. Will you support House Bill 1072 and provide civil legal aid funds to immigrants and indigenous citizens?
I'll just jump in and say the answer is yes. I've already voted in committee. I was like, that sounds familiar. So yeah, definitely supportive of that. And also just really excited to share in terms of supporting our immigrant community generally. The Immigrant Relief Fund was part of our $2.2 billion package that we moved early to help our neighbors who are immigrants who were left out of much of the federal legislation. I hope and expect a change with our change in the White House to be more inclusive of our neighbors who are immigrants, and excited that we are leading the way here in Washington State with our Immigrant Relief Fund and this bill.
You know, I'd like to go back for just a super quick second. I know that we're short on time, but I want to go back to the homelessness issue for a second, because I think that in the spirit of gracious space and the spirit of servant leadership, we have to have the humility to put on the table the real deal of so many of these issues. And the state has fundamentally failed our behavioral health system. We have fundamentally failed to have a deeply integrated system that supports people who are experiencing homelessness. And of course, our drug addiction services and the lack of treatment services is a systems issue. We can't pretend that Seattle can solve the problem for the entire region, or that there's this downstream challenge of people migrating to Seattle. And it is a state obligation, and we've got to do better. And we've really failed at a systems level to lift up the availability of services in both behavioral health as well as in addiction services. So I think we all also have a responsibility to acknowledge the extraordinary difficulty of really losing public access to Denny Park, to Denny and Ballard Commons and Lower Queen Anne. I mean, we're all feeling the profound effect of homelessness, and I feel strongly that it is not something that the city of Seattle can do alone. We are not stepping up to that, to the magnitude and the depth and the seriousness with which a systems approach requires. So I just really want to acknowledge the impact on communities and on small businesses. And we can't have a fierce commitment to density and smart growth and urban development and not have public infrastructure like parks be accessible to families and to people. So it's an incredibly difficult issue, and I just feel like we have to acknowledge that the state's role in this has been inadequate. So I just really want to acknowledge it.
All right, thank you. And our final question of the evening is going to come from Rachel on Facebook, who wants to know how constituents can make appointments with you.
Well, I will take this for my office. First of all, I would absolutely love to meet with you. It's the highlight of my day when I get to speak with all of you. I truly mean that, because it's a lot of hearings and mind-boggling, brain-numbing things. And I really love, I'm missing that as an extrovert myself, talking to all of you every day. I have my number written down because I don't have it memorized yet. Call us, 206-709-5260. Email me, Liz. Oh, you have that. Oh, look at that. It's up the little graphic. Okay, good. I don't have to have it memorized. Email Liz at, liz.berry@ledge.wa.gov. My legislative assistant's also Emma Spickard. So it's emma.spickard@ledge.wa.gov. And we will get that set up for you.
I'm like, I can tell you my Olympia phone number, but we're not in Olympia. So I'm glad that we have the graphic. Yes, please contact us. Just email us. Our legislative assistants, who are, by the way, some of the most incredible human beings on the planet. So Emma, Natalia, Josh, we have a heck of a team in the 36th district, and they did a lot of great work to get us prepped for tonight. They are watching live. We love you. Thank you. So yeah, email us. They'll help get those appointments set up. We all make a lot of time to meet with constituents. That's why we're here for you. So thanks.
And
go ahead, Reuven.
Sorry, I was just going to say, as we do get ready to wrap up, let's really make an effort to put that vaccine information back up if we could, to help people out. There's nothing more important. If you're eligible, if you meet the conditions, if you don't have internet access and you need a phone number, we can hopefully reach out to us and we will help you. It is so important that we just know that we're in the historic time of history, and we need to support each other. And I just want to say, if you will allow me also a personal grace on that, my wife Wendy is a physician, and it's just been an exhausting year. It's been incredibly difficult. So I just want to honor all of the healthcare workers, the nurses and the doctors and the folks who've really stepped up. It has been profound. I see it every day when Wendy comes home emotionally and physically exhausted. And I just really want to honor their service and the work that they do. So if you need help, please reach out to us. We will do everything we can. We treasure our opportunity to be of service to you in terms of our constituent work.
Great, thank you for that. That is all the time we have for questions tonight. But be sure to go ahead and contact your lawmakers either through the phone number, through the email addresses provided, if you have follow-up questions you'd like to ask them. I'm just going to ask you, would you guys like to make some closing remarks?
Yeah, please go ahead. Representative Berry, why don't you kick us off?
Well, I just want to thank you all again for this incredible opportunity and honor to serve you in the legislature. Like I said, 4 weeks on the job, I'm still figuring out where the elevators are and the bathrooms are, so to speak, but I'm getting there. My first bill passed out of the floor yesterday, and I have a lot of great pieces of legislation around making sure we're supporting workers, protecting our environment and energy issues, and also making sure that we build transportation structures that are safe, equitable, and green. And again, reach out to me anytime if you have questions or need assistance with any agency. And thank you again for this incredible honor. Hope to see you out and about with my mask on. Just say hi if you think it's me and we'll chat. Thanks for being here tonight.
I'll go next. I'll just echo all the comments that Representative Berry just made. And I don't know about you, Reuven, but I can't believe it's been 5 years. I'm sure you feel the same way. This job, it's such a joy. It is the love of my life beyond my own family. I love this job. I love serving you. I love representing you. It really is an honor, and it's just so interesting. It is so intellectually stimulating, and we're so grateful. We have such involved constituents. You all, if you don't know this, you're like the most active constituents in the entire state. You write us more emails than anybody else. You're brilliant. So thank you for bringing your good ideas to us, and just thank you for the opportunity to serve. It's a pretty cool gig. Senator?
Thank you so much to my unbelievably fabulous seatmates. And I also want to say that that at a time like this, what I ask of you and for you is the grace of acknowledging with deep empathy and humility and gratitude the challenge that our community and our city and our state and our world is facing. I think the spiritual energy of renewal is beginning. People are starting to have a sense of hope. And to the healthcare workers, to the teachers, to the first responders, and to the elderly who are so vulnerable, and to the kids who are suffering, and the lack of school, the lack of community. And I'm not just talking about extroverts. I think even the introverts are starting to say, holy cow, this is serious. But seriously, it's a great honor to be your partner in service. And I just want you to know, if you need help, if you're feeling desperate, if you're needing support, please reach out and get the services and the support that you need from your friends, your family, your community. And we have to have grace and love for one another and realize that we're in a profoundly serious time together as we go through this journey. Thank you for the honor for all of us of being your partner in service.